You've heard it before, that one sentence, the one that sounds casual, almost dismissive, the one that makes you question everything. And yet, deep down, something about the way they said it felt different. It lingered, it echoed, it carried weight. Avoidant psychology is confusing because love doesn't look like love when it lives inside someone who fears closeness. They don't rush forward, they don't make dramatic declarations, they don't drown you in reassurance. Instead, they hesitate, they step back, they contradict themselves. And sometimes, the very things they say when they are falling the hardest sound like resistance. This is what most people misunderstand. When an avoidant person starts to fall in love, their nervous system does not celebrate. It panics. Intimacy feels like exposure. Attachment feels like risk. Depending on someone feels like losing control. So instead of saying, "I'm in love with you," they say things that sound uncertain, distant, even self-sabotaging. But if you know how to listen beneath the words, you'll hear the truth. Because when they say certain things, they are already in love. I don't usually do this. At first, it sounds small. Maybe they said it after opening up about their childhood. Maybe they said it after spending the entire weekend with you. Maybe they said it when they reached for your hand first. The words slip out almost defensively, like they need you to understand that this behavior is not normal for them. And they're right, it's not. Avoidant individuals build invisible rules to protect themselves. Don't depend on anyone. Don't reveal too much. Don't let someone become essential. Those rules keep them safe from disappointment, rejection, and emotional overwhelm. So when they say, "I don't usually do this," what they are really admitting is that you have already shifted something inside them. They broke their own rule for you. That moment matters more than grand gestures. Because for someone who survives by control, stepping outside of their emotional comfort zone is terrifying. It means their defenses are weakening. It means they feel something strong enough to risk vulnerability. It means they are allowing you into territory they usually keep locked. They may quickly follow it up with a joke, or distance themselves the next day. That's the fear talking. But the truth remains, they did something they don't usually do, and they did it because they care. Love for them doesn't begin with fireworks, it begins with rule breaking. I need space. This is the sentence that hurts the most, the one that makes your chest tighten, the one that makes you think you're losing them. But here's what most people don't understand. When avoidant individuals start to fall deeply, their attachment system activates in a way that feels overwhelming. Their independence feels threatened. Their emotional world feels too exposed. The closeness that once felt exciting suddenly feels consuming. So they pull back, not because they don't care, but because they care too much and don't know how to regulate it. When they say, "I need space," pay attention to what follows. Do they still check in? Do they still watch your stories? Do they still respond, even if slower? Do they still orbit your life instead of disappearing completely? That paradox is the key. If someone truly feels nothing, they detach cleanly. But when an avoidant person asks for space while still maintaining a thread of connection, it's usually because they are trying to calm their nervous system, not erase you from their world. Closeness triggers fear of engulfment, fear of losing autonomy, fear of becoming dependent. So space becomes their coping strategy. It's their way of saying, "I'm overwhelmed by how much this matters." It doesn't make it easy. It doesn't make it painless. But understanding the psychology changes how you interpret the words. Space in their language often means, "I'm scared of how important you've become." And that fear only shows up when love is already forming. "I'm not good at relationships." This sentence sounds like a warning, like they're preparing you for disappointment, like they're lowering expectations before you get too attached. And on the surface, that's exactly what it is. But underneath it is something deeper: shame. Avoidant individuals often carry a core belief that they are emotionally inadequate. Maybe they grew up learning that needs weren't safe. Maybe they learned that vulnerability led to rejection. Maybe they were praised for independence, but never taught how to sustain intimacy. So they internalize the narrative, "I'm not built for this." When they say, "I'm not good at relationships," they are not announcing a lack of feeling. They are confessing fear of failure. They're saying, "What if I hurt you? What if I can't show up the way you deserve? What if I lose myself in this?" It's self-protection disguised as self-awareness. Because the truth is, if they didn't care, they wouldn't bother warning you. They wouldn't worry about being good enough. They wouldn't feel the weight of responsibility. That sentence only comes out when the stakes feel high. And the stakes only feel high when attachment has already formed. They are trying to manage expectations because they are scared of disappointing someone they value. That's not indifference. That's investment mixed with fear. And when someone who avoids emotional depth starts worrying about how they might affect you, it's because you matter deeply. I don't want to ruin this. This one is subtle but powerful. It usually appears during moments of closeness, after a deep conversation, after a vulnerable confession, after laughter that felt too intimate. You might hear it and think they're hesitating, that they're unsure, but psychologically, this sentence reveals something profound. Avoidant individuals fear two things at the same time: losing themselves and losing you. When feelings intensify, they anticipate destruction. They assume something this good can't last. They brace for impact before it happens. So when they say, "I don't want to ruin this," they are admitting that what exists between you is valuable, precious, fragile in their eyes. They are afraid their own patterns might sabotage it, afraid their need for distance might hurt you, afraid their emotional limitations might break something beautiful. That fear only shows up when they care deeply about the connection. If it were casual, they wouldn't worry about ruining it. If it were meaningless, they wouldn't feel pressure to protect it. The anxiety around preservation is a sign of attachment. They may not say, "I'm falling in love," but when someone is scared of ruining something, it means they see its worth, they feel its potential, they recognize its emotional weight, and that recognition is love beginning to surface. Here's what makes avoidant love so complicated. It grows quietly. It hides behind hesitation. It disguises itself as caution, self-doubt, or distance, but the clues are there, in the rule breaking, in the requests for space that still include connection, in the self-critical warnings, in the fear of ruining something meaningful. When you learn to listen beyond the literal words, you start hearing the emotional truth underneath. Avoidant psychology doesn't erase love, it just changes how love sounds. And sometimes the sentences that feel the most confusing are the ones that mean they're already in deeper than they're ready to admit. I've never told anyone that before. When those words leave their mouth, something sacred has just happened. Avoidant individuals do not hand out personal truths easily. They survive by compartmentalizing, by minimizing, by keeping certain memories and emotions locked away where no one can use them against them. So when they share something raw with you, something about their childhood, their fears, their insecurities, their regrets, and then quietly add, "I've never told anyone that before," understand what that really means. You've crossed a boundary no one else has. Vulnerability is the language of attachment. For someone who avoids emotional exposure, choosing to reveal a hidden part of themselves is not casual. It is deliberate. It is risky. It is terrifying. And the most powerful part? They often don't even realize what they're doing in the moment. The words spill out because they feel safe, because your presence lowers their guard, because something inside them believes, maybe for the first time, that they won't be judged or abandoned for being seen. Afterward, they may pull back. They may joke. They may act like it wasn't a big deal, but it was. It was huge. That sentence is a quiet confession. It says, "You feel different." It says, "I trust you more than I expected." It says, "I'm letting you see the real me." And trust is the soil where love grows. You deserve better than me. This one hurts. It sounds like rejection, like they're preparing to walk away, like they're pushing you towards someone else. But listen carefully. Avoidant individuals often struggle with deep feelings of unworthiness. They don't always believe they can sustain intimacy. They know their patterns: withdrawal, silence, emotional shutdown. And when they begin to truly care, fear creeps in. Fear that they will fail you. Fear that they will hurt you. Fear that they won't be enough. So instead of saying, "I'm scared of losing you," they say, "You deserve better than me." It's a protective maneuver. They're trying to preempt the pain. If they convince you to leave, they won't have to experience you leaving on your own. If they lower your expectations, they won't feel the crushing weight of disappointing someone they love. That sentence only appears when the emotional stakes are high. If you were just an option, they wouldn't care whether you deserved better. They wouldn't measure themselves against your worth. They wouldn't feel the pressure to be more. Underneath that statement is a fragile truth. You matter so much to me that I'm terrified of being the reason you get hurt. It's not indifference. It's fear wrapped in self-sacrifice. And when someone who avoids attachment starts worrying about your happiness over their own comfort, love has already taken root. "I'm just busy lately." Timing is everything with this one. It rarely shows up when things are casual. It appears when the connection deepens, when conversations become more intimate, when future plans start slipping into dialogue, when the emotional intensity rises. Suddenly, they're busy. Work is overwhelming. Life is chaotic. They need to focus. On the surface, it sounds like avoidance, and sometimes it is, but psychologically, it's a deactivation strategy. When closeness triggers their fear system, they unconsciously create distance to regulate themselves. Here's what's happening internally. Their feelings are growing, and that growth feels destabilizing. Love threatens their sense of independence. It challenges the narrative that they don't need anyone. So their mind looks for reasons to pull back without admitting the real cause. Busy is safer than I'm scared. And yet, watch their behavior closely. Even when they claim to be overwhelmed, do they still respond eventually? Do they still show curiosity about your life? Do they circle back after a few days as if nothing happened? That pattern reveals ambivalence, not absence of feeling. When avoidant individuals truly feel nothing, they detach permanently. But when they're falling in love, they oscillate. Closeness, distance, connection, retreat. It's a rhythm driven by fear, not apathy. If their busy phase follows emotional intimacy, it's often because what you shared mattered. It touched something deeper than they expected. And instead of leaning in, they instinctively step back to regain control. It doesn't mean they don't care. It often means they care too much. Let's not put labels on it. Few phrases are more frustrating. You want clarity. You want definition. You want reassurance. And they respond with resistance to labels. But this isn't always about commitment avoidance in the way people assume. For someone with avoidant tendencies, labels symbolize permanence, expectation, obligation, loss of flexibility. When attachment forms, the idea of being official can feel suffocating, not because they don't value you, but because their nervous system equates commitment with entrapment. Yet here's the contradiction. They continue showing up. They continue investing time. They continue sharing experiences. They continue building emotional intimacy. If they truly wanted something casual, they wouldn't need to argue against labels. They would simply keep it superficial. The debate about definition only emerges when the connection already feels significant. Underneath, let's not label it, is often this hidden message. This feels important, and that scares me. They fear that once it's defined, it becomes real, and once it's real, it can be lost, and loss is what they protect themselves against at all costs. But the fact that they are still there, still engaging, still emotionally intertwined, means their attachment is active. They're just trying to control its intensity. Sometimes love grows even in the absence of a title, and sometimes the resistance to naming it is proof that it already exists. I miss you. When this comes from an avoidant individual, it rarely arrives dramatically. It's often casual, soft, almost understated. Miss you. It's weird not seeing you. Things feel different without you. They won't say it with tears. They won't flood you with emotion. They may even say it with a half smile, like it's no big deal. But it is. Missing someone requires attachment. It requires emotional presence in their absence. It means you occupy space in their mind even when you're not physically there. Avoidant individuals pride themselves on self-sufficiency. They convince themselves they don't need anyone. So admitting they miss you challenges their identity. It exposes dependency. It reveals that your absence affects them. That's why it's often said lightly, to minimize the vulnerability, to soften the exposure. But don't underestimate it. If they tell you they miss you, especially after creating distance, that's a crack in the armor. That's their attachment system surfacing despite their defenses. It means the space they asked for didn't erase you. It means the independence they cling to still includes thoughts of you. It means you've become part of their internal world. And once someone lives in your internal world, once their absence is felt, that's no longer casual. That's emotional bonding. Avoidant psychology is not about absence of love, it's about fear of its consequences. Every one of these phrases, every hesitation, every self-doubt, every request for distance can sound like detachment. But when you look beneath the surface, you see something else entirely. You see someone grappling with emotions they were never taught how to hold. You see someone fighting the instinct to retreat while simultaneously longing to stay. You see someone falling in love in the only way they know how, slowly, defensively, imperfectly. And if you've heard these words from them, if you've felt the push and pull, if you've sensed that their fear is louder than their clarity, understand this. Love doesn't always announce itself confidently. Sometimes it whispers through contradictions. Sometimes it hides inside hesitation. Sometimes it sounds like distance when it's actually depth. And when they say these things, they may already be in love, even if they're still trying to convince themselves they're not. I'm not used to someone caring like this. When those words come out, they're not casual, they're disoriented. Avoidant individuals often grew up learning to rely on themselves. Maybe affection was inconsistent. Maybe emotions were dismissed. Maybe vulnerability felt unsafe. Over time, they adapted. They told themselves they didn't need reassurance. They convinced themselves that independence was strength. So when you show up consistently, when you check in, when you listen deeply, when you offer warmth without conditions, it disrupts their internal blueprint. Your care doesn't just feel good, it feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar can feel dangerous. When they say, I'm not used to someone caring like this, what they're really saying is, this is touching parts of me I usually keep numb. They might say it softly, they might say it with a laugh, as if they're embarrassed. But underneath that statement is something profound. Your love is reaching them. Avoidant people don't comment on care they don't feel. If your consistency didn't matter, it wouldn't register. But the fact that they notice it means it's affecting them. It means your presence is reshaping something inside. And that kind of internal shift doesn't happen without attachment. I thought about you today. It sounds simple, almost ordinary. But in the world of someone who values detachment, it's anything but small. Thinking about someone when they're not there is a sign of emotional integration. It means they carry you mentally. It means your voice echoes in quiet moments. It means something reminded them of you. And instead of pushing the thought away, they let it linger. Avoidant individuals often suppress longing. When they start missing someone or thinking about them frequently, it can feel intrusive. It challenges the belief that they are self-contained. So when they admit, I thought about you today, they are exposing something they usually keep private. They are revealing that you occupy space in their mind beyond convenience or proximity. Pay attention to when they say it. Is it after a few days of distance? Is it after an argument? Is it random, unprompted? Those spontaneous admissions are the most telling. It means you live in their subconscious landscape. You've become a reference point in their daily life, something they compare experiences to, something they internally reach for. And when someone who avoids dependency starts voluntarily admitting mental preoccupation, that's not surface-level attraction. That's attachment deepening quietly. I don't know what I'm feeling. This sentence is often misunderstood as confusion about you, but most of the time it's confusion about themselves. Avoidant individuals frequently disconnect from their own emotions as a survival strategy. They intellectualize, they minimize, they distract. Over time, identifying feelings becomes difficult. Intense emotions feel chaotic and unfamiliar. So when love begins to grow, it doesn't arrive neatly labeled. It arrives as restlessness, as anxiety, as sudden longing, as fear mixed with excitement. And that combination feels overwhelming. When they say, I don't know what I'm feeling, it's rarely because they feel nothing. It's because they feel too much and lack the vocabulary to process it. They might seem distant during this phase. They might retreat into silence. But internally, something is shifting. Their emotional world is expanding, and expansion feels destabilizing. The truth is, indifference doesn't create confusion. If someone feels nothing, they're clear about it. They move on easily. They don't sit in emotional uncertainty. But when feelings are strong and unfamiliar, confusion is natural. So when they admit they don't understand what's happening inside them, hear the vulnerability behind it, they are acknowledging that something significant is stirring, something powerful enough to disrupt their usual sense of control. And love for an avoidant heart often begins exactly there, in the discomfort of not knowing how deeply they're already attached. Why are you so calm about this? This one comes during tension, maybe after a disagreement, maybe when emotions rise, maybe when they expect you to react dramatically. Avoidant individuals are often accustomed to emotional volatility. They may expect conflict to escalate. They may anticipate rejection, criticism, or chaos. So when you respond with steadiness instead of panic, it unsettles them in a good way. Your calmness challenges their narrative. That closeness leads to emotional overwhelm. It introduces a new possibility: intimacy without chaos. Connection without control, being stripped away. When they ask why you're calm, what they're really asking is it safe to stay? They are testing stability. They are trying to understand if this relationship can exist without consuming them. And if they keep engaging after that question, if they continue investing, continue returning, it means your emotional regulation is lowering their defenses. It means they are slowly trusting that love doesn't have to equal loss of self. That shift is massive. Because once an avoidant person begins associating you with safety instead of threat, their attachment deepens in ways they may not even consciously recognize. I've never stayed this long before. This sentence carries history inside it. Past patterns, previous exits, old endings. Avoidant individuals often leave before things get too serious. They detach when expectations rise. They disappear when vulnerability becomes unavoidable. That pattern becomes part of their identity. So when they look at you and say, "I've never stayed this long before," understand what that implies. They've had opportunities to leave, they've felt moments of overwhelm, they've likely experienced their usual urge to withdraw completely, and they didn't. Staying for them is an act of courage. It means pushing against instinct. It means tolerating discomfort. It means allowing attachment to grow even when fear whispers to run. They may say it casually, almost surprised at themselves. But beneath that surprise is recognition. Something about you is different. Something about this connection feels worth the risk. If it were temporary or shallow, staying wouldn't feel noteworthy. They wouldn't reflect on duration. They wouldn't compare it to their past. Longevity becomes meaningful when attachment has formed. And when someone who is wired to leave chooses to remain through uncertainty, through vulnerability, through emotional intensity, that choice speaks louder than any dramatic declaration. Avoidant love is rarely loud. It rarely announces itself boldly. Instead, it reveals itself through patterns that contradict their usual defenses, through words that expose insecurity, through admissions that feel small but carry enormous emotional weight. If you've heard these sentences, if you've felt the push and pull, if you've watched them wrestle with closeness instead of walking away entirely, understand what you're witnessing. You're not seeing someone who feels nothing. You're seeing someone learning in real time how to stay while falling. And that process is messy. It's slow, it's filled with hesitation, but it is real. Because when an avoidant person starts noticing your care, thinking about you in your absence, questioning their own emotions, feeling safer in your calmness, and staying longer than they ever have before, love isn't approaching. It's already there. I don't want to lose you. When those words finally surface, they rarely come at the beginning. They don't appear during casual flirting or early excitement. They emerge when something feels threatened, when distance grows, when silence stretches too long, when the possibility of you walking away becomes real. Avoidant individuals are often more afraid of losing someone than they are willing to admit, but they don't usually recognize that fear until it's activated. As long as they believe you'll stay no matter what, they can manage their emotions with distance and control. But the moment they sense you pulling back, something shifts. Their attachment system fully wakes up. When they say, "I don't want to lose you," it's not light, it's not playful, it's raw. It's the crack in the armor they've worked so hard to maintain, because admitting the possibility of loss means admitting the depth of attachment. You cannot fear losing someone you don't love. And when an avoidant heart acknowledges that fear out loud, it means the connection has crossed into territory they can no longer dismiss. It means your absence would hurt. It means your departure would leave an emotional imprint they don't know how to handle. That sentence is not casual vulnerability. It's emotional exposure at its peak. I'm trying. It doesn't sound romantic, it doesn't sound poetic, but in avoidant psychology, it may be one of the most meaningful phrases they can offer. Trying means effort. It means self-awareness. It means they see their own patterns and are choosing not to let those patterns automatically control them. Growth feels terrifying for someone who built their identity around emotional independence. Opening up more, communicating better, staying during conflict. These things don't feel natural. They feel risky. They feel like walking into unfamiliar territory without a map. So when they say, "I'm trying," they're not asking for applause. They're revealing struggle. They might still pull back sometimes. They might still need space. They might still stumble. But the difference is intention. The difference is that they are consciously pushing against their instinct to detach. Effort is a love language many people overlook. For someone who is naturally expressive, saying "I love you" might be easy. For someone avoidant, choosing to stay in a difficult conversation instead of shutting down might be their version of "I love you." Trying means you matter enough to fight their own wiring. And that kind of internal battle only happens when the heart is already deeply invested. I feel safe with you. This is rare. This is sacred. Safety is everything to an avoidant individual, not physical safety, emotional safety. The assurance that they can be imperfect without being rejected. The reassurance that they can express doubt without being attacked. The comfort of knowing they won't be controlled or consumed. When they tell you they feel safe with you, it means their nervous system has stopped bracing for impact. It means they are not constantly preparing to defend themselves. It means they can exhale in your presence. That level of comfort doesn't happen quickly. It builds slowly, through consistency, through your patience during their withdrawal, through your calm during conflict, through your steady presence when they expected chaos. If they say they feel safe, it's because you've proven yourself over time. And love, for an avoidant heart, is inseparable from safety. They cannot fully attach where they feel threatened. They cannot open where they feel judged. So when safety becomes associated with you, attachment deepens in a way that is hard to undo. That sentence may not sound as dramatic as a declaration of passion, but in their emotional language, it might mean more than, I love you, you're the only one who gets me. Understanding is intoxicating for someone who feels chronically misunderstood. Avoidant individuals often struggle to articulate their inner world. They may feel different, detached, or emotionally out of sync with others. When you listen without forcing, when you don't demand constant reassurance, when you respect their need for space without making it a battlefield, something shifts. They feel seen. And being seen without pressure is transformative. When they tell you that you're the only one who gets them, it means you've accessed a layer of them that most people never reach. It means they don't feel the need to perform around you. They don't feel the need to exaggerate independence or minimize emotion. Recognition creates bonding. If they experience you as the one person who understands their silence, their contradictions, their fears, their depth, that connection becomes unique. And uniqueness breeds attachment. They may not say it loudly, they may say it in passing, but underneath it is this truth. You've reached a part of me I don't show often. And once someone reaches that part, love follows quietly behind. I hate that I care this much. This is the final confession, the most honest one, because it reveals the internal war. Avoidant individuals often equate caring deeply with vulnerability, and vulnerability with danger. So when their emotions intensify beyond what feels manageable, frustration appears. They don't hate you. They hate that you've become important. They hate that your mood affects them. They hate that your absence feels heavy. They hate that they check their phone hoping it's you. Caring this much feels like losing control. It feels like dependency. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff without knowing if the fall will be safe. So they say they hate it. But indifference doesn't create frustration. Only attachment does. If they truly felt nothing, there would be no internal battle, no push and pull, no anger at themselves for feeling too deeply. The resistance itself is proof of emotional depth. And here's the truth that ties everything together. Avoidant love doesn't look like fairy tales. It doesn't move in straight lines. It doesn't express itself perfectly. It's layered with fear, self-protection, hesitation, and contradiction. But it is real. It shows up in broken rules, in requests for space that still include connection, in confessions of unworthiness, in fear of ruining something beautiful, in vulnerability shared quietly, in efforts to grow, in admissions of safety, in frustration over caring too much. If you've been on the receiving end of these words, if you felt confused by the mixed signals, yet sensed something deeper underneath, you're not imagining it. When someone who is wired to avoid intimacy starts exposing fear of losing you, starts trying, starts staying, starts admitting safety and care, they are not halfway in. They are already in love. They may not say it clearly, they may not even fully understand it themselves, but their nervous system knows, their behavior reveals it. Their words, when you listen closely, confess it. And sometimes the quietest love, the one wrapped in hesitation and fear, is the love that had to fight the hardest to exist.